Hello, everybody, and welcome back to VUDivulged. I'm Anthony Volkowski, the General Manager, and on today's Distinguished Speaker Series, we have Kevin Arnett, who is the Special Agent in charge of Defense Counterintelligence Security Agency in the United States Department of Defense. During his program, he talks about his role in this agency, as well as why counterintelligence is important to the Homeland Security enterprise. I hope you enjoy his presentation.
We're going to start our last Distinguished Speaker Series for the year. This is Kevin Arnett. He will be our speaker for today. He is a Special Agent in charge at the Indianapolis Field Office. So if you could, please give your undivided attention to Kevin. Thank you.
Hello. So I'm Kevin, and I have a question for all of you before I start. Has anyone Googled me or tried to do any research on me? Had some money to give out if anyone did. So, so step one, always research who you're going to be meeting. So I learned this from a Navy SEAL. When I was speaking somewhere and for lunch, I went to sit down and eat, and this random guy comes up and starts talking to me and tells me about my life because he read my bio and he did some research, and I was like, wow, this is impressive. So just heads up. So I'm Kevin. I'm going to get into this in the future with my job now. I'll get to that. I'm Kevin. This is my wife, Elisa. She's a history teacher for high school, and my 4 daughters. So grades 2, 3, 4, and 11th grade. So we live in Sullivan. I work in Indianapolis 2 days a week, but I'm really all over the state. Have 16 agents that work throughout Indiana. So I have to do evaluations and just meet with them. So I'm all over Indiana. We cover parts of Michigan, parts of Illinois, and parts of Kentucky. Okay, so I joined the Navy. I think I'm going to travel the world, right? And that's when I got my first top secret. And I get stationed with George Bush. So has anyone heard of Camp David? Tell me about it.
It's like the president's retreat center where he goes. And
Yep.
Who met there, Macy?
Carter and the Egyptian president.
Good. Who else?
The Israeli prime minister or something like
Yep.
that.
What was it called when they met?
The Camp David Accords.
Nice job.
How's that?
Here,
How's that?
Macy, here's $5.
Oh my gosh.
You pass that back to her.
Thank you.
I would have just snagged it.
Hey, did you do any research on Rep?
On who?
Rep Whitson?
Right here?
Yeah.
I did not.
$5. He's got a similar fabric.
Oh, perfect. So, I joined the Navy, and I get my first top secret, and I get stationed with George Bush, and it's about an hour north of D.C. in a little place called Thurmont, Maryland. So this is in the Oval Office. I got to invite one guest, and this is my family friend Beth, who's a huge Republican and loves George Bush. So I invited her. And then this up here is on Christmas Day, 2005. Were you anyone born before 05? Good. So Christmas Day, the President and the First Lady, they spent probably 3 hours taking photos and mingling with everyone that had to work that day. So it was very cool to see how they, because the Secret Service, the military, they had to get taken away from their families to work and support him. So he kind of just paid us back, which is really neat. Here's a famous sign. So I was Sailor of the Year, which allowed me to get a personal tour of the White House. And that's the, help me out, press conference, where they give the White House press conferences and stuff. You know what I'm talking about? Right? So, which is really cool about that tour, well, I got to see the burn marks in the White House from when the British burned it down, which is really neat. It's still there. A long time ago. Okay, so I leave the Navy, and I become a police officer in Gulfport, Mississippi. Anyone ever been to Gulfport? It's awesome. It's a hidden gem down in the south, on the Gulf Coast. So, raise your hand if you volunteered at Sullivan last year in the tornado. Anyone go down there and help do anything? This is huge. This is Hurricane Gustav. I would recommend any natural disaster that you see, you hear about. If it's in driving distance, go there and help, because you need real world experience. I got to live through a hurricane or work through a hurricane, seen a lot of crazy stuff. And so I'm from Sullivan originally. So when we hear there's a tornado coming, we don't do anything, right? We just we don't have bad weather here. So I'm in Gulfport as a cop, and my coworkers, they're all piling their trunks full of coolers and food. And then I'm like, I'll stop at the gas station or Walmart and get something. Well, they take hurricanes seriously after Katrina. So everything was boarded up. There was nothing open at all. So it was my first, I failed miserably. So I had to borrow food and stuff for a day or two because everyone closed up, boarded up their windows, and they were gone, right? They didn't want to mess with a hurricane again. So one of my keys is volunteer, get that real world experience. Trooper, right? So you can do a ride along with a trooper, right? So if you raise your hand if you've done a ride along with any city cop, county, nice. Do ride alongs, see what it's like. You got to get that experience. Okay, so I was a cop. I ended up moving back home, and I joined the Air Force. So I was in the Air Guard. I was an intelligence analyst. So up here, went to 7 months of intel school in Texas. We work with drones and reapers, or reapers and predators. So we work drone missions all over the world, mostly in the Middle East. And we work manned missions and unmanned missions. So with that, the Global Hawk, it's a drone, but it flies at 70,000 feet. But you have the Predator and Reapers that fly at 20, 30, 10,000, 3,000 feet, right? Then we have the manned missions, which is the U-2. Anyone know any history about the U-2?
A spy plane that supposedly could see a dime.
Just because you said spy plane, here's $5 for you too.
Thank you.
So the U-2 is an incredible aircraft. So what it would do essentially for some of these missions, work several different types of missions. So let's just say there's a convoy of Americans or coalition forces, right? The British or whoever it would be, driving down a road, and we would have the drone and we would fly ahead of them and look down and basically scan the route before on their path to protect them. And we would say, hey, it looks like there's a person here. We call them MAMs, military age males. So it's very difficult. The government put a lot of restrictions on how we work. So if you have a guy, eventually it was if you have a man with a gun or something that looked like a gun, it took a lot just to basically strike them and kill them, right? So if they weren't it was at times if they weren't actively shooting at Americans or coalition forces, we couldn't do anything. Anyone ever heard of Bo Bergdahl? So we worked some of his missions trying to find him. A lot of times, you see on like drones on, and if there's any movies or TV shows, they're never that clear unless it's for the CIA. So if you see a drone, it's sometimes very hard to see and hard to know what you're looking at. Also, we would stare at a house or called a compound. We'd stare at a compound for 12 to 24 to 48 hours, literally waiting for a white truck to leave. And once it leaves, we follow it. So real world experience, join the military, join the Air Guard. They're Air Guard based in Terre Haute. You'll get a top secret security clearance there. It's 1 week in a month. Phenomenal experience because you're working real life missions. You work a mission and you'll see it on CNN or Fox News at night. Very cool stuff. So right down here, I switched. I still did intel, but I switched to domestic operations. So what we did was, you guys know about emergency management and stuff, right? So we work with all around the Wabash Valley, Terre Haute, down to here to Vincennes. And what we did was, we would say, hey, Macy, it's the only name I remember, and Josh. So Macy, like in your area, Macy, what's critical infrastructure? Where you live?
Like water.
Yeah.
Like the well service of Ukraine.
Exactly. So I'd say, hey Macy, what's critical infrastructure in your area? And you would say this dam or this well, this waterway. We would fly up and we'd partner with Civil Air Patrol, and we would fly and take aerial photographs of the whatever she would want. And then we annotate it, which means we would say, like, this is 17 feet wide. We'd measure it with our equipment, right? And we would basically give her all the knowledge that she needs to know everything about her critical infrastructure. So then when crap hits the fan, we could go back up and take aerial pictures again, and then provide it to her and say, hey Macy, now, like, it was this dam broke, or whatever it would be, right? With the Sullivan tornado, it would have been great. I'm not with them anymore, so I don't know what they did. But so I got to do intelligence work awesome missions, but then I got to work domestic stuff to where literally I threw up in this plane because we would find a target and we'd fly in circles to really get these really good photographs. Well, I can fly straight. I can't fly in circles, so several of us threw up. So I was responsible for planning the mission. And then every now and then I didn't like to fly, so I was the backup camera guy, which had to do it about half the time. Really cool stuff. So Air Guard Base in Terre Haute, I highly recommend it. You get a top secret when you join, and you get intelligence experience. Okay, another thing, you're all gonna get bachelors, is that right? Nice. I would recommend, so it kind of took my next thing I was going to say out because I didn't know if some of you are going to get associates. So continue your education. I went to St. Mary of the Woods to get a master's in leadership. Because of my military service, I had free college. So it took me 12 years to get a bachelor's. It took me 1 year to get my master's. So continue your education. Never stop learning. Never stop. So how old are you?
Old enough.
Oh, old enough. So what's your take on someone who is 25 and they stop learning the rest of their life, and they think that they got it all and they don't need to learn anything else?
They're just basing their experience on tribal knowledge and not learning the challenges of the future. They're just stagnant.
Exactly. Never stay stagnant. Do not be the status quo. Always go above and beyond. I tell my team this because some of them, we have evaluations coming up, and I'm like, what are you doing above and beyond? So a question for all of you in here, what are you doing above and beyond? Blake, he didn't realize how to use this equipment earlier, but he had to figure it out, right? So what are you doing above and beyond? Never stop learning, never stop growing. Okay, so I work for the Defense Counterintelligence and Security Agency. I used to work for OPM. OPM is the Office of Personnel Management. It's a federal agency. Well, we were so far behind on background investigations that when Donald Trump was president, he basically said, nope, I'm going to create a brand new agency, and this is the agency. So we all transferred. Okay, so raise your hand if you know anyone with a security clearance. Okay, so what we do at DCSA is we investigate people for security clearances. It could be someone that is going to the White House with Governor Pence, right? 5-6 years ago, he was selected as vice president. So a lot of his people, he took them from Indiana to the White House. So they all had to be investigated. It could be somebody, 18-year-old kid joining the military, or a 17-year-old kid joining the military. Also, it could be an engineer from Rose-Hulman that's working on a top secret project at Crane. We're always at Crane, right? So it could be a professor at Purdue that is doing government contracts, government research, right? So we will investigate anyone at all who needs a security clearance. So let's say Josh is getting his security clearance, right? Because he's going to be Customs and Border Patrol, right? He's on the Mexican-American border in South Texas, Brownsville. Hot down there. It's terrible. So he's sweating. But we have to investigate him, right? So what we would do is he would fill out what's called an SF-86, and it's his whole life, essentially. Lou, you probably filled out some of these before in the past, or some type of security.
I've worked 350 backgrounds.
Yeah.
He doesn't do FBI, he doesn't do U.S. Attorney, he doesn't do any DOJ, but he does other agencies that he just said, Customs and Border Protection. So he does a lot of Treasury stuff, correct?
Yep.
And Homeland Security, DHS, do you do DHS too?
We have contracts for that, but we don't do them here. Yeah, we do marshals. We do investigate marshals.
Now, are your employees or they're contractors?
No, they're all federal employees.
Police,
We're not law enforcement. So we're 1810s.
not 1811s,
No.
but they are all full-time.
Yep.
Do you hire any part-time contract employees?
No.
Huh.
No. So
Is this Department of Defense too, or?
Department of Defense, that's the main agency who we work for. Yeah. So let's say that Josh is down in Texas and I'm investigating him. So I would come talk to Lou. I may talk to Macy and say, hey, what kind of student was Josh? Tell us about him. Did he come in hungover? Does he drink a lot? Does he party? Did he cheat in school, you know? Right? We want to know everything about him. And then let's say if Macy's like, actually, you probably want to talk to Blake because he knows him better. So we'll go interview Blake and we'll go wherever the investigation leads us. So if Blake is like, actually, he got arrested for public intox by VU campus police. So then we're going to go to VU campus police, and we're just going to keep on going where it leads us, right? So a lot of our cases are simple. We're in rural Indiana, right? So there's not a lot of I'll just say a lot of crime, or it's mostly financial stuff and then alcohol.
About social media.
Yeah. So we do check social media. So be careful what you post, right? Because it's all fun and games, and maybe you can lie to an investigator, but there's always a record of something somewhere, right? Also, it's hard to lie on a polygraph, right? I'm sure Luke has talked about polygraphs before, but so you can get your social media brought up. I was just talking with a state police major yesterday. He's on the school board with me down in Sullivan. So he was talking about the candidates, the state troopers coming in, and they talk about direct questions about what are you posting? What are you doing with your phone? Let's be more specific. What pictures are you sending on social media, on Snapchat and whatever else they have nowadays, right? Are you texting nude pictures or are you like taking a picture of somebody and sent it to somebody else? And he said you'd be so surprised with these newer troopers coming through of what they're doing on their phone. And you can be honest through a polygraph and never lie, but because of what you did, they have a list of no-go list. So live a pure life, right?
What about prior drug use?
Yeah, so let's just say marijuana, right? That used to be a no-no. It's still a no-no for the federal government. I've interviewed an engineer from Crane who still uses marijuana after 15 years. So he then lost his security clearance because he apparently didn't know it. Is what he said, right? So there's a lot of these vape pens. We're learning a lot about these, the Delta 8s, Delta 9s. So be careful. Does anyone here vape? Good. So if you get a vape pen and you take a puff or a hit off of it, odds are it's going to have marijuana in it, right? From all the interviews I've done. So then when you do your security clearance, you're going to have to put on there, yes, for marijuana, and then it's going to cause more issues. Go ahead.
So I have a question about polygraphs. Everyone fills out and gets like the
SF-86 and gets a security clearance, they don't all come in having to take polygraphs, right?
No.
So what determines who would have to come in, and like when would they, do they all usually take polygraphs at some point throughout their careers, or what dictates when they have to take one?
Yeah, good question. So, for example, when I was an intel analyst, I had to get access to NSA information, so I had to go through a polygraph. The higher level you go, you need a polygraph, right? For FBI agents, you get them every 5 years, or every 5 years you take a polygraph. For us, it would only be dependent on what level of investigation you're doing. So if you're in DC and you're working on a special project, you would have a polygraph.
If you, even though you have top secret clearance, if you're getting access to some really confidential information, you might still have to take a polygraph in order to continue and go further with something like that?
Absolutely, yeah. It depends on what type of classified information you're working on. So so top secret is the initials for that is TS. If you hear the word TS or the saying TS, like, hey, do you have a TS? It's just top secret security clearance. It's short. So there's TS, and then there's SCI, which is secured compartmented information. So when I was an intel analyst, I had SCI capability. So I could get classified information from certain systems. But as an investigator now, I just have regular TS. So I don't have special access because I'm a general investigator, okay? But when I was in the Navy, I had TS Yankee White. Yankee White is a type of security clearance for presidential work, presidential stuff. So there's kind of, if you hear someone say, well, it's a Q clearance. You ever heard of a Q clearance? It's a Department of Energy TS, that's all. So a TS is the highest clearance we have, but there's compartments within that could take it essentially higher or different information, if that makes sense. So, okay, so we're not law enforcement. Blake can pass around my badge over there. It's my fat picture. It was a little heavier back then. But we carry credentials. Our titles are special agents. And it's kind of the best of both worlds, right? Because we become expert interviewers. We interview people constantly. I've went on a 4-hour interview with someone, a Coast Guard person that was giving information to Cuba, the Cuban officials, right? So, and I'll just walk through that case. The gentleman was stationed in Cuba, and what he was doing was he would go to meet with the Cubans on their property for his normal job. But he would leave his trunk open, and he would accidentally have classified information about what the Coast Guard does for drug operations around Cuba. So he would leave the plans in his car. He would go to a meeting. When he comes out, he drives away, and he says, oh crap, I have this classified information. So he would take it and return it. And what that does, it gives him plausible deniability. So if he has to take a poly, or he talks to people, he can genuinely believe that he didn't do it. But we got him to say, like, he knew what he was doing, right? He knew that they were like a high percentage they were looking in his trunk. So we pass that on. So stuff like that, if we develop anything, we pass it on to the FBI. Or we pass it to our CI group, and then they liaison with the FBI to get involved. Another case, a high school kid joined the military in Illinois. I went to the police department and the sheriff's office and the city police, and there was no record of him anywhere. So I'm like, okay, no big deal. But the police officer says, you might want to check the school. I think this kid was in some trouble. So I'll swing by the school. Turns out this kid planned an entire mass shooting, and he told his fellow students and said, hey, wear purple on April 21st. And if you wear purple, that will mark that you're safe from me. So this kid was about to be in infantry, which means carry weapons and learn how to shoot. And so I had to work with an FBI agent out of St. Louis and give him all my case stuff to basically, technically, legally, I wasn't supposed to just give it to him because it's supposed to go through FOIA. Anyone know what that means? Good job. I don't have any more $5 bills, or I'd give you one. Freedom of Information Act. So it's legal stuff, right? So I just gave it to him just because it was time sensitive, right? This kid was leaving for boot camp in like 3 days. So we actually stopped him from going for boot camp. And so we don't want him, someone with those mental issues, getting a weapon and being trained. We have a case, one of our agent out of Indianapolis worked a case. Well, I'm just going to say this. I hope I don't offend anybody, Lou. China is playing chess and America is playing checkers. They are everywhere. Okay. They're in Indiana, and they are more focused on espionage cases. And I'm trying to say this in the right language, but I'm not. Sometimes I don't articulate things very well. So, I would just recommend be very careful about anyone you meet from China. I'm hoping I don't get you in trouble, Lou.
I'm Italian. We discussed the threat.
They're a huge threat, okay? I just had an agent call me a little bit ago when I was over here and said, hey, my neighbor, just to let you know, because we all have take-home cars, and we get to choose if we want undercover plates or government plates. Well, this agent has an undercover plate. He says, my neighbor just sold his house to someone from China, sight unseen. So someone from China bought his house without even looking at it, without inspecting it. And he's told that this person travels back and forth to China for work, right? That's a huge red flag, right? So that's what they're doing. They're buying stuff sight unseen. They're spending a lot of money. They're paying full asking price for things. Imagine a million-piece puzzle, right? China is basically one, like, they're not, I won't say you, but just one person is getting a piece of the puzzle and sending it back to China. And then if they've got, 10,000 people here that are going to school, they're living their life, but if they're all sending little pieces back, it's a problem. So it's our biggest threat as DCSA, right? I believe it's the FBI's biggest threat is the China threat. So I'll move on from that, but just be wary, right? Oh yeah, I forgot to say, we're hiring. So it's gonna be via LinkedIn. Okay, we're hiring for two spots in Indianapolis. Okay. So the requirement that I have is, because we need people in Indy. So the requirement that I have is you have to live within 30 miles from downtown. Okay. We're targeting recent college grads, if you know anybody. Also, the pay. You want to make good money, right? So we start out at about $50K. That's year one, right? It's GS7 to GS12. So GS7 is, say, $50K. GS9 would be about $60K. GS11 would be about $71, $75K. GS12 would be about $95K. And in the government, now we don't have a great as retirement as Lou had with CRS, whatever that, CSRS.
You took CRS?
Yep, that's a fabulous retirement. I wish I had it. We don't get that, but we have a really good retirement. So you want to make $100K in 5 years, and you want to do investigative work. We don't carry a gun. We have a government take-home car, right? So you don't waste your own gas. You're a federal employee. You retire after between 25 to 30 years. When you retire, your salary would be, so let's just say, how old are you again? 20? About to be 20? So let's just say you're 50 when you retire, right? You're going to be making $140K probably, right? With those pay raises, $150K. So your pension, does anyone know what a pension is? Okay, pensions are unheard of anymore, right? They're getting weaker and weaker. But a pension is, so if she's retired at 150K, what's 30% of 150K? Anybody know? Calculator, you got a calculator. 30% of $150,000. He's about to get the calculator out. So what he's about to, whatever number he tells us, that's going to be her pension for the rest of her life. So she's 50 and would have a pension for the rest of her life. That's a pension's a retirement.
105,000 or 150,000?
150.
45,000.
45,000. So you're 50 years old, and now you're gonna retire. Now you're making $45,000 for the rest of your life.
But also, Kevin, tell them about the COLA.
It's the best part. COLA, cost of living increase. So every year, essentially every year, you're going to get a pay raise. So you're 50, and let's say you're 75. You're 75 years old now. You've been retired for 25 years. That 45K is probably 75K now, or 65, or it's going to go up. It's inflation-induced retirement, essentially.
Now tell them about the health care.
Yeah. So the big thing about retirement is people retiring is healthcare, right? It's expensive. And you're going to have healthcare now as well until you're 60.
You get a choice, right? Every October.
Yeah.
It's trying to stress it with them, but every October you get to pick from maybe, I think I have like 7 healthcare choices.
Yeah.
And you can't be denied. Whichever one you want, you take.
Yeah. And you don't,
I got Blue Cross Blue Shield.
I don't think they understand medical insurance right now, but once you get your big boy and big girl job, it's going to smack you right in the face. And you're going to be like, wait.
And when the Vincennes police officer retires after 30 years, he's got to get a part-time job as a school resource officer because he doesn't leave with a
Yep.
healthcare package. That's sad.
Yep.
It really is.
So the federal government is really, it's really, if you want a family life, right? And that's what, in our job, if you want to, so for example, I've got 3 little kids, and every morning I wake up, I get them ready for school, I see them off to the bus. I couldn't do that if I had a different job. We work remotely from home. I should have said that. So our office is in Indianapolis, but we have agents all over throughout the state. So you set your own schedule. So if Macy's got, she's coaching high school volleyball, and you got to be at practice by 4:30 every day, and you set your own schedule and you do it. I mean, I coached cross country for Duggar High School last year, so I'd set my own schedule, and if I'd make it up different times, right? Like I'm not a micromanager with my agents, so I can check on them. They're producing work. I give them work. They submit it back. I give them new work, and they all have their own lives. I mean, I have a couple college adjunct professors on the team, some coaches. I have a college umpire for baseball and softball. So they all have stuff outside of work. And with this schedule, raise your hand if you want to have a family. Okay. So if you want to have a family and you want to make good money and have a career it's not easy. It's not easy sitting across from somebody. My longest interview, 6 hours, with a Notre Dame professor. Okay? This guy his house cost over $1 million. So talking with him for 6 hours, it's mentally exhausting. It's a couple pee breaks, but you got to stay focused because you're trying to get to the truth, right? This guy had a Russian brother-in-law who they were sending money back and forth, right? $50,000, $60,000 back and forth. Kind of suspicious, right? So a lot of other stuff, but you've got to be on your A game when you talk to somebody. And then when they say, like, let's say I review her case before our interview, and I sit down, and then all of a sudden she's like, yeah, I've been in a psych ward for 3 weeks. I did heroin last year, and then it throws you off, and then you got to okay, focus. Now let's, and you got to, you're interviewing, but you're taking a lot of notes. So you got to be on your A game. So let me give you a quick random day. So I wake up, I'm a supervisor now, but when I was an agent, you wake up, you make sure you have all your case materials, and you might go to a farm, you might go to Crane. I've been to a strip club and a church in the same day because I called my boss, hey, if you see a government, if you get a complaint that a government car is at the strip club, I have to go here, and it's normal. You go wherever. I've talked, anyone know Eva Core? What is she?
She's the Holocaust survivor.
Yeah, I got to interview her.
The
I mean-
girl that was sitting right back here that had to leave work for her.
Oh, cool.
At the meeting.
Yeah, so I had to go to the Candles Museum and talk to Eva Core, a Holocaust survivor. I had to interview, you'll go to people's houses, you'll go to neighborhoods, because like if Josh is getting his security clearance for Customs and Border Protection, then we have to interview his neighbors. So we interview everyone. And then we talk to coworkers. We go through if he worked at the gas station, we would interview people at the gas station. And then we type it up and we submit it for a report. So had to throw this in here. My key to life, find out what you're good at. Find out what you have a passion for. And you have to find out where these two intersect, right? Because I was a former police officer, and I think that's the best job in the world. I really do. A city cop responding to calls. However, I have 4 kids, and my wife is in the National Guard, and she's a school teacher. So I can't put all of that on her. So I actually found my rhythm in this job because it's the best of both worlds. I still get to do I get to do interviewing and investigations, but I also have to be there for my family too. So find out what you're good at, find out what your passion is, and whatever your career is has to mix with those two. Because I would love to be a professional athlete, but I'm 5'7" with shoes on. I'm not going nowhere, right? So even though my kids think I'm some spectacular human. Okay, also, be positive. Always improve and learn. So dream so big that it scares you. And this is a big one I'll touch on. When I was young in the Navy, I had self-limiting belief, okay? That I would see someone with a nice house or a nice car or a special job or career. And I would think in my head, man, that's cool. That's awesome of them, but I can't do that. So the biggest hurdle is confidence. Be confident, and if you don't believe in yourself, it's never going to happen, right? Always believe in yourself. That was my biggest hurdle. Live below your means, right? And I'll get to that in a second. And then find mentors. Well, I researched Lou years ago, but I did it recently too.
What movie was that?
I don't know. All of my stuff was like from the 80s, Lou. I read an article from 1984.
Don't rub it in.
So find mentors. You have Lou here, right? Look at this. He has, if you should be knocking down his door to come in here and talk to him, okay? He can, if he doesn't know the answer, he can find it. The sky's the limit, really. And then also, live below your means. I got a humble brag here. Anyone know Dave Ramsey?
I listen to him sometimes.
Yeah. So we investigate people all the time, right? The number one thing that we come across is finances. I don't care I've met people making $140K, $150K a year, and they're in debt up to their eyeballs because they want to have that big truck or that huge house. We've been in houses to where they can't actually furnish some of the rooms because they can't afford to put furniture in there because the house is so big. So the number one reason for security clearances that get denied or pulled, R for finances. So don't keep up with the Joneses, live below your means, and Dave Ramsey could help you. And this is my, I love motivation. So it's not about the goal, it's about growing to become the person that can accomplish that goal. So when I got my master's degree, it's a self-limiting belief that I'm not smart enough for that. I can't do it. But then I got a seat at the table and I'm like, wait a minute. Like, I belong here. I could do this. And when I graduated with my master's degree, I was so let down because I thought I was going to feel special when I received that diploma. But it wasn't. It was that year, that 13 months I grinded, that I developed and grew so much. So it's about the journey. It's not really necessarily the end goal. Any questions? Go ahead.
What's the longest you've spent investigating on one person?
Probably, I mean, it depends, right? Because like the kid in Illinois, the school shooter, I had to go to the prosecutor. We tracked down like the police chief from that time who was living like hours away. So say 2 weeks, 3 weeks, but it depends on the availability of the people we want to interview.
Okay.
Yep. Question?
Would you say that like interviewing is like mostly what you do with the investigations, or like what other aspects of investigations do you do?
Yeah, we review records. So I had to review someone who's going from a male to a female, right? And I had to review their medical records. I'm not a medical expert, but I had to review it and find out what mental health problems are there, right? And so you kind of have to be a jack of all trades. Like you're a general expert. I mean, we have to review passports. I didn't even have a passport until I got this job because I had to review them. Well, what am I looking? I mean, so you're a general expert of everything essentially. It's very tough because I've interviewed people from foreign countries that are joining the military here or being engineers, getting a security clearance for some reason, and I can barely understand them. And I have to ask the question over and over again in different ways, and had to have them call somebody to translate, or we call somebody to. I mean, it's interviewing is the main thing, but it's essentially you're finding the truth. Whatever you need to do to find the truth is what we do. We do a lot of driving, so a lot of podcast time too. Oh.
You guys offer internships?
Yeah. Internships. Visit the DCSA website. I think they just closed recently, but always keep us in mind because I'm telling you, we just hired somebody, actually, she's from the Bureau of Prisons, and she took a $35,000 pay cut to start over with us. And she actually just texted me the other day and said, hey, thank you so much for this opportunity. Like, I love it. Because she sent me a video of, she's walking up to knock on a house to interview this neighbor, and she got attacked by ducks. So she's like, this is crazy. And I'm like, well, you never know what's going to happen when you're walking in these neighborhoods and stuff.
What Kevin's not telling me too is that when he goes up to a neighbor's house, he has no idea who's on the other side of the door. And when he flashes that badge, if that person doesn't want law enforcement at his door, he doesn't have the firearm to protect himself.
Yeah.
So that's really crazy. That's nuts.
Well, so the agent safety is a huge deal right now. So they're looking at a pilot project of different safety things we could do. Well, issuing us weapons, but we have some very out of shape people that wouldn't pass a PT test that couldn't get issued a weapon because of that. And then they're looking at basically not doing residential neighborhood checks anymore.
Bureau doesn't do it.
Oh, really?
As of about 3 months ago.
Wow. Yeah, we're going that way because think about it. I mean, you go into so I tell my team, if you're ever in danger or you don't feel safe, don't do it.
Can
What?
you carry because you can carry as a citizen in the state of Indiana? You can't, right?
No.
It's too.
Is that at all times or just when you're on duty?
Just when you're on duty. Yeah. Yeah, we have one guy out of Chicago. He's a reserve deputy, So at night he goes and rides, he actually has his own car. He's been doing it long enough and been trained, so like he can do traffic stops by himself.
It's a great job, folks. I'm telling you. Kevin, if you have anything graphically, you can send me a PowerPoint format. I'll put it on our Facebook page. We may have graduates in the Indy area.
Okay.
Be interested.
As soon as it comes out, I think it's May 17th to 24th, I'll send it to you guys.
And I know it's almost time to go too, but I just want
Yep,
to
go ahead.
ask your question.
So, when applying for your agency or any other federal district, it goes to the USA Jobs?
Yep.
Is that how you apply?
Yeah. So USA Jobs, if you haven't ever been on USA Jobs, go on USA Jobs just so you can see the federal jobs. There's tons of them there. But for this one specifically, we're doing LinkedIn. We're not going to be on USA Jobs because USA Jobs is that government red tape stuff, right? It's terrible. So we're going around it to hire. Basically, you're going to send a resume to LinkedIn or to an email address, and that's how you're going to apply.
One other thing I want to say before we break here today. I was fortunate enough to convince him to be part of our advisory committee. So he is now a member of the Homeland Security Advisory Committee. He was just there the other day. As you can tell from his background, his experience, his education, he is someone who I'm going to try to convince to apply to become an adjunct here in the Homeland Security program. So you got the chops. That's what I'm looking for. Look at the background. I mean, that's tremendous. And that's what you should all strive to do. Remember when we talk about options. Look at how he has filled his career, right? What do I call it? The quiver, right? Look at how he's put in all these experiences, and now he's doing what he's doing. And he's still he's very marketable for a lot of other jobs too. You within the age range now?
I'm 38. So real quick, I applied for the FBI. So a mentor of mine, he's an FBI agent, Josh Pirtle, which I think he spoke here last year. So he's from my town. I wrestled in high school with him. And remember that self-limiting belief I was like, I can never make it to the FBI. And he's like, no, you need to apply. He's like, you never know till you do it. And so I do it, and I went through the whole process. I didn't get selected, but Lou had part of my interview, so he was investigating me essentially. But I went through the polygraph. I went through everything. So I was very bitter and upset because I had my hopes up, right? But at the end of the day, like, I'm a family man.
Yeah, no, you don't.
So,
don't ever look back on it.
Yeah.
God works in mysterious ways.
Absolutely.
Great job.
Yeah.
You were in the bureau. Your wife would be in the bar.
Yep.
You'd be home with your kids.
And I'd probably be in San Francisco paying $4,000 for a rent in a little apartment.
And you know what? Just recently, the director of the FBI testified before Congress about FBI agents who are going broke.
Yep.
Because they can't afford the transfers into the San Francisco, into the Los Angeles division, etc. They can't afford it. And I will just say this too. The reason the Bureau may not have accepted you, Kevin, is because funding may have dried up. There's a whole lot of different reasons that go into me. No, look at you. It's a great job.
Yeah.
Are you kidding?
Well, so, and that's, it's my favorite Bible verse, John 13:7, right? Jesus said that you don't understand you don't understand what he is doing at the moment, but later you will. So I understand I'm here for a reason, right? Like, I had to go to Indianapolis sometimes, and I'll stay the night there in the office and stuff. And my kids hate it. And they're so used and spoiled to me being there constantly that they hate it when I leave. So I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, right? Like, years of trying to figure it all out, and I finally am here.
I will tell you, as a father of 3 daughters, spending a month in Singapore, that you never get that time back. You just don't. And do I have regrets today? Yes and no. I mean, but it is what it is. That was my lot in life, and that's his. Geez,
Yeah.
What they should do with you guys is make the 1811s. And if you got some chubby you can't do a background, fire
Get them out.
That's all.
Yeah. Well, and so one last thing, Lou. We do, anyone know what a TDY is?
Temporary duty assignment.
So you can go TDY. TDY is like, so I went to Ramstein, Germany last year for 2 months. I flew my family over, all my extra, so I got paid $10,000 extra in per diem money to go over there. So I used it all to buy plane tickets and for my whole family to come for a couple weeks, right? So I got to work those cases. So they give me a car. I drove all over freaking Germany on the Autobahn, gave myself a heart attack, and doing essentially investigations. So I've been to San Francisco. I've been to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. So you can travel for 2 weeks or 2 months at a time, and it's up to you. Like, it's awesome.
Once again, I'm going to stress, there's a reason I'm here, there's a reason we have a Homeland Security program, and that is to offer you options. You can become a police officer in Indiana, do it for 35 years, there's nothing wrong with that. You can get your 4-year degree, become a police officer for 2 years, then work for a department like his, DEA, ATF, U.S. Customs, whatever, and now your world explodes with opportunities. This is another living testament to that. So please tell your friends here who don't get it, that they get the 2-year degree, they're 19-year-olds, they want to go home, and then they want to wait till they're 21 to become a cop. They're wasting a lot of great opportunities to get that 4-year degree and have that in their pocket so that if opportunity fails with DNR or whatever, they can pull out that 4-year degree and say, okay, I got my 2 years working in the jail, I want to apply for such and such, fill in the blank. A great opportunity. I mean, it's, I'm glad you came.
I wish you had this program in 03,
Yeah.
04. I would have came
I
here.
think it started in like 2005, I think. So
Yeah.
you just missed it.
Yeah.
But grateful to have you, Kevin. I want to turn it over now to.
Thank you for speaking with us today.
Oh.
On behalf of Eta Sigma Iota and the Homeland Security Program, I'd
Alrighty.
like to present you with this.
Thank you.
Yep. And